Hello there, and welcome to Wildcard Decks, a channel where we go through some of the more off-meta options. And whilst I said the next video would probably be Twin Suns, Mace Windu, and Quinlan, I forgot I had the store Showdown coming up, and I did pretty well. So today we'll go through that deck, perhaps in a little bit more detail than I do normally, but it's Grand Inquisitor yellow, so a little, well, I say a little bit different, very different to the Grand Inquisitor deck that I posted previously. This one is a lot more aggressive than the blue version that I posted a while ago. So let's get into it. So the unit split, there's a major difference from last time because I think I only had like 7 or 8 space units in the blue version, and this time we've got 14 ground, 21 space. So a major shift there. Resource cost, as you can see, you've got tons of 3 cost plays, and that's partly because of the events. And a lot of the best space units for this kind of deck are in the 3 resource slot. Then in terms of rarity, there are no legendaries, and there's only a few specials, which is the Separatist Commando, and then got a decent number of rares, which is mostly in the events from memory, but it's quite a plausible deck to be able to put together. So what does Grand Inquisitor do, as a reminder for anyone who is not familiar? So his frontside action is to deal 2 damage to a friendly unit with 3 or less power and ready it. That might seem like an ability that you can only really use early on in the game, but you can basically cheat that because if your unit has raid, then it's actually punching for more, but its base power is still 3 or less, potentially. So that is kind of the main thing that you're looking to build your deck with. And if they have grit as well, then you're powering it up with the action and readying it at the same time. I should say I've gone with a 30 HP yellow base because Jeddah City, I could kind of see a place for it if you want to get a favourable unit kill in, but I didn't really see that being reliable enough versus having a stronger health pool. And Petronaki Arena would give Grand Inquisitor an extra 1 power, but you don't really care about his attacking ability. It's all about his ability itself. That was not a very good sentence structure. Anyway, Grand Inquisitor, he comes out on 6 resources, so middle, late-ish. His stats are awful for a 6 resource leader because it's only 3 attack and only 6 health, whereas I think every other leader at this stage will have 7 health. And I mean, you even have some 5 resource leaders that have 7 health, like Django. So Grand Inquisitor is extremely understated for on the face of it anyway. But his ability changes ever so slightly. On attack, you may deal 1 damage to another friendly unit with 3 or less power and ready it. So same restriction on the unit itself, but it does 1 less damage, which can be useful. The main thing that you're looking to do on the 6 resource play is having the clan challenges out. You ready it up, do 2 damage, it hits for 6, you then bring out Grand Inquisitor, you hit for 3, ready it up again, you hit for another 6, there's potentially 15 damage that you can get onto their base in 1 turn. We have some yellow cards that mean we can actually get even more than that, potentially, if you're able to set it up. But we'll get into that a bit later. So onto the ground units, -1, because I'm about to showcase that in a bit more detail. But we've got Separatist Commando, so we do have Rush Clovis as another Separatist ground unit. We do have some early space units that are Separatist as well, which will activate the Separatist ability here of this getting Raid 2. So that is the reason this is in the deck. So the ideal, potentially ideal, turn 1 and 2 plays, if your opponent does nothing about it, you will play Separatist Commando turn 1, turn 2 play the Vanguard Bomber, which does 2 damage automatically because this is a Separatist. This then has 4 power when attacking, you hit base for 4, ready up, hit base for another 4, that's 10 damage so far, and then you can Daring Raid to get 12 damage on their base. I think that is the most amount of damage you would be able to get that early in the game. So just an example of how explosive this deck can be. So the next unit is the Deathwatch Loyalist, so it's a 3/3, which is not very good stats, but it has grit, so you can play this out and then ready it up with the ability, and then it's hitting for 5. It has Overwhelm as well, so it's a good unit to use to take out a Sentinel, because you'll be able to get some Overwhelm damage in, most likely, at that stage of the game. On to Rush Clovis, and here's a unit that I don't think anyone uses, and I think in most decks he doesn't really have a place. So he's a 4 resource, he's a Separatist. His power is 3 as well, but he has Raid 2, so he actually hits for 5. And then he does have a little bonus ability if you get use out of it, you're not looking for it, but on attack, if a defending player controls no ready resources, create a Battle Droid token. So depending on how the flow of the game is going, you might be readying him up after they've already used all their resources, and then you'll get the on attack of getting a Battle Droid. The Battle Droid is not significant whatsoever. It gives you a tiny bit more power on the board. The main use for it would really be to take a shield off like a Village Protectors or something like that, or just to finish off a unit. So, but yeah, we don't care if we don't get a Battle Droid out of him at all. We have Clan Challengers, who I mentioned earlier already, but it's by far the most powerful unit with Grand Inquisitor, and that is not changing anytime soon. So it has 3 power, but it has Raid 3, so it actually hits for 6 when it's attacking. It's only a 5 resource play, so in an ideal world, you get this down on your 5 resources, it's ready when you've got 6, you hit for 6, ready it up, hit for another 6, deploy, Inquisitor, hit for 3, ready up. Again, it hits for another 6, so by itself it's done 18 damage. With Inquisitor it's done 21 between them. So that is the maximum potential that this card can do, assuming your opponent does nothing about it and has no Sentinels. It does have an Overwhelm tag, but it's only while it's upgraded, and we have no upgrades in this deck, so that is never going to activate. Well, unless they put a bounty on it potentially, but yeah, generally it's not going to activate. So onto the wildcard, and this is where I highlight one in particular that does not see a lot of use, or in the context of a leader that we're looking at sees no use, and Jabba the Hutt is one that I decided to put in quite late, but he's 4 resource, 2/8, so you can ready him up with the Inquisitive ability quite a few times because he is a big fat slob of a health pool. But each trick event you play costs 1 less. I think I only have 6 tricks in this deck, in the main deck anyway, so you may not always be able to make much use of it, and also when played, search top 8 cards for your deck for a trick event, reveal it and draw it. In terms of the stats and how likely this is to happen, in theory, unless you've resourced a lot of tricks early on in the game, it's more likely that you will be able to get a trick from this ability than not, but because we don't have many, it's entirely possible that you will not, unfortunately. So the reason we've got him in is because we have Sneak Attack, so that's the main one that you'd be looking to get from him, really. But if you end up using Sneak Attack, then you've used 2 cards from your hand in one phase. So hand size, that's the word I'm looking for. Hand size can be an issue as you get further on in the game, so Jabba can help to replenish that. I think we probably need a few more tricks to make it more reliable, and there is one trick in particular after the Showdown where I'm thinking, actually, if I had that in my deck, that would have been a massive help. So we'll get onto that towards the end. But yeah, he's that's the main reason he's in, to help replenish your hand, and then the -1 is a bonus really for trick events themselves. Onto the space arena, and this is the majority of where we're looking to do the real damage, apart from clan challenges, of course. So we've got Cartel Spacer. It does have an effect if you control another yellow unit. You're not going to pull this off very often. You get to exhaust an enemy unit that costs 4 or less. It's a bonus if you do manage to do it, but it's mainly just here because it's a turn 1 play. You can play it turn 1, ready it up, and hit in for 2 damage. Hotshot V-Wing, it has exactly the same stats as Cartel Spacer, but no ability. It is here, again, just to add to the turn 1 plays. When set 4 arrives, there are going to be better options that will just push this V-wing out completely, and potentially the cartel spacer as well. And I'll get onto them towards the end of the video. We've got 3 of the Vanguard Droid Bomber. So this is a turn 1 play, but you generally don't want to actually play it on turn 1 because it only has 2 health, so you can't ready it up with the ability, otherwise it will just die, and you will not get the when played ability. So as I said earlier, you want to have the Commando out, then play this turn 2, you've done 2 damage straight away, your Commando now has 4 power when attacking, so that's the ideal kind of order of events we're looking for. Yes, you might have 1 resource left over, but it's a small trade-off for that extra damage. Confederate Tri-Fighter, gone for 3 of those. It means that bases can't be healed. We've got no healing in our deck, so we don't care about it affecting ourselves. But if you're against blue decks in particular, then this can be very useful in delaying their restorative capabilities. It also has 3 power and 3 health, so you can ready it up once with Grand Inquisitor's ability and potentially hit for 6 in 1 phase. I've gone for Disabling Fang Fighter, so it can't be readied up with Grand Inquisitor's ability because it would kill it, but you get the when played of defeating an upgrade. If you get it off of Triple Dark Raid, you can get rid of a shield and then play it again the next phase and get rid of something else as well. In the Showdown itself, there weren't too many upgrades flying around. I think I got rid of a shield and a Van Brace flamethrower, and that was it. So I didn't end up using this card a whole lot, but that is the main reason it's there. You can also get rid of things like Perilous Position as well, and bounties. So it does have utility, but that's why I've only gone for 2 of them, because it is more situational and does not tie into Grand Inquisitor's ability. Punishing One, so I've gone for a full 3 of those because it's got a 4 health pool. So again, it's got 3 power, so it comes in, you can ready it up and attack for 3. If you get it off of Triple Dark Raid, then you can hit for 6 in 1 phase because of the health pool. And then when an upgraded enemy unit is defeated, you may ready this unit, use the ability only once each round. That's not very likely to happen. If it does happen, that's an absolute bonus. But yeah, because potentially you would hit in, an enemy unit gets defeated, that's upgraded, it's ready again, another 6, another 6, another 3, ready it up with the Inquisitor's ability and hit in for another 3, so you've done 9 damage potentially. But yeah, with the way the deck is built at the moment, not likely to happen. 7th Fleet Defender, so this is another excellent target for Triple Dark Raid, and it's just very good with Inquisitor as well because it comes in shielded. So you can use Inquisitor's ability to just knock off a shield and do 3 damage. And again, Triple Dark Raid, similar to Punishing One, attacking, ready it up again, and attacking again. So you've done 6 damage in 1 phase with 1 unit. And then I think this is the only unit that has more than 3 power in this deck, but it is a good one, so it kind of has to go in. If you're going to play Triple Dark Raid, generally when you have 4 resources is the best because you'll be able to get the Ruthless Raider out, because Triple Dark Raid gives a 5 resource discount, so you'll still need 1 left over to be able to do the Ruthless Raider. But when played and when defeated, deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit, so you can help to maintain the arena a little bit with this, which we don't have too many ways of doing at the moment. But interestingly, it actually, in terms of base damage, it's no more powerful than Defender, Punishing One, or the Tri-Fighter, because you can't ready it up with Grand Inquisitor's ability because it has that 1 extra power. So it comes in, does 2 damage straight away, which can be beneficial in itself if you suspect your opponent is going to be able to deal with it, or Perilous Position it, etc. And then you can hit in for 4, so you're guaranteeing 2 damage at the very least. But with Punishing One, Fleet Defender, and Tri-Fighter, you are potentially going to be able to get in for 6 damage with them anyway. So just something to think about. Of course, you don't get the 2 damage ping to an enemy unit as well, but with these 3 options, but it's just something to consider. Now, you may be thinking, this is a Triple Dark Raid deck, Yellow Aggression Villainy. Where's the Lurking TIE Phantom? And Lurking TIE Phantom is just not as good with Grand Inquisitor because, as I've mentioned, these 3 units can hit for 6 in one phase, potentially. Lurking TIE Phantom only has 2 health, so you can't ready it up with Grand Inquisitor's ability, so it's only going to hit for 4, which, maybe I'm being picky, but it's just not going to be as good with what we're trying to do. Yes, it has the immunity to take down and all that good stuff, but we're not going to use the ability. Now, when I get on to set 4 scouting, there is a card in the next set that will make Lurking TIE Phantom a complete automatic include, but we'll get onto that a bit later. So yes, you might think I'm mad, maybe I am, but I think my reasons for not including it are pretty sound. On to our events, because we have no upgrades whatsoever. So we've got 2 Daring Raids just as a bit of extra damage pushing potential. It can also finish off some units if they're attacking into yours to take yours out. Got 2 No Good To Me Deads. This is primarily to deal with leaders, really, or if they have got a massively beefed out unit on the battlefield. I know from memory I was able to use it on Django when he had a flamethrower attached to him, so that was pretty crucial. Sabine with a Darksaber attached to her. I did manage to use it on Anakin, but I still lost those matches anyway because, yeah, Blue Hero, we'll get onto the weaknesses of this deck later, is a problem. Now, Sneak Attack is one of the absolute best weapons in this deck because you get the discount. The unit enters play ready, and then at the start of regroup phase, it is defeated. But if we just have a quick look at Ruthless Raider, for example, you will get the when played and when defeated in one phase, which means if you do manage to attack into base with it as well, that's 4 damage plus 4. So you're getting 8 damage in, potentially, plus 4 damage to enemy units as you please. The other potential is, of course, clan challenges. Now, Sneak Attack means you can play a unit out 1 phase earlier than you otherwise would be able to. So when you have 4 resources, you can potentially get clan challenges out with Sneak Attack. And if you're able to pull off the full 6 damage, ready it up, 6 damage again, then that's 12 damage that you're getting in very early on in one phase. And if you manage to do the previous Separatist combo that I mentioned earlier, you might have got 24 damage in before you've even got to 5 resources, which is just a bit filthy, really. So yeah, Sneak Attack is extremely useful, but it does have the downside of depleting your hand quite a lot. It is difficult or tricky to know if to hold out on this for a Ruthless Raider or Clan Challengers, or to go in early with like a Deathwatch Loyalist, because that by itself as well, with Grand Inquisitor's ability, can get in for 8 damage if your opponent does nothing about it. So yeah, there is a lot of decision making as to timing and when to go in hard and fast and when to hold off and wait for maximum potential. Triple Dark Raid, I'm not going to go through this in massive detail. We've already gone through all the space units, but it is incredibly useful. It kind of binds the deck together in a sense. And with Grand Inquisitor, as I say, the unit comes in ready, you attack, and unless it's Ruthless Raider, you ready it up again and attack in. So you can get in for 6 damage usually, and that is why we do not have the Lurking TIE Phantom in here. Unnatural Life. So this was a odd one. I thought it would be really, well, the logic behind it is very sound, and it should be really good with Grand Inquisitor. However, I was never really in a good spot to be able to use it, and I wonder if that is because of the sequencing and not having the initiative very often. But I was much more reliably able to use this when I was playing my Sarge and Kylo decks that I've posted on this channel previously. So I think revisions to this deck in future, I would be looking to, I'd probably sideboard this completely, maybe only 2 of them, but I don't think I'd have it in the main deck. But if you're not familiar with what it does, it costs 3. If a unit has died this phase, then you can bring it back from your discard pile for 2 less resources. So if it's Clan Challengers, you need 6 resources in total. It enters play ready, and then at the start of a regroup phase, it's defeated. So it's kind of similar to sneak attack in a way. But the potential that I was seeing with this is that, let's say you get your clan challengers out on 5 resources. At the start of the next phase, you hit for 6. They take it out by whatever means. You play Unnatural Life, so you're paying your full 6 resources. It comes back, it hits for another 6. You can then ready it up before Inquisitor deploys, hits for another 6. Grand Inquisitor deploys, readies it up again. I've not kept track of how much damage that would be, but that is the reason, or one of the reasons, that I put Unnatural Life in here. Of course, if you get 7 resources and your Ruthless Raider has been defeated, then that would be another excellent target, because you'll get, not only will you get the defeated of the Ruthless Raider, you can then play it out, get the when played, and then when the phase ends, you'll get the when defeated again. So in one phase, you'll get 3 triggers of Ruthless Raider. So it has a lot of potential, but it just didn't seem to pull off as I would have liked. So yeah, back to the drawing board with that one. So it will open up a slot for some other stuff. And then Waylay, this is mainly to deal with Sentinels, or if they do get a beefed up unit that they upgraded a lot, that will be able to outrace us. So yeah, it's not a whole lot to say about that, but that is the reason that it's there. So on to the major weaknesses, which is a little bit ironic because I did come up against 2 Tarkin Town decks, which is what I was dreading, but I did beat both of them. So I would still maintain that its major weakness is Tarkin Town, because if you're damaging your own unit to ready it up, they can just Tarkin Town it away. So it does become quite a brain puzzle as to, okay, how do I sequence this? Do I take the initiative now? Do I bait them into Tarkin Towning an early unit away? Because you do not want them to Tarkin Town Rush Clovis or Clan Challengers away. That would be far, far worse. So yeah, I think most players will do an early Tarkin Town, and because of Grand Inquisitor's ability, you can actually mitigate against that somewhat, because in every other deck that would put you quite far behind. But let's say in the next phase you then triple Dark Raid, then in terms of damage, you'll be able to get 2 attacks in potentially, which will then put you in parity on base damage. You'll still have no unit out, but again, with Grand Inquisitor's ability, if you don't have a unit out, you can still normally attack with it in that phase that you deploy it anyway. So swings and roundabouts, I guess, but I would say that Tarkin Town it does create a puzzle, let's put it that way. I found that I kind of knew it would be the case, but Sentinels were a massive issue as well. I think Waylay by itself is not enough, and there was one event that I overlooked, which we'll get onto in other options, that would have absolutely been a potential godsend. So you live and learn. Damage pings are also the enemy of this deck, because you've got units where if you ready it up with Grand Inquisitor, then you're leaving it with 1 health remaining at times, and then a damage ping can just finish it off. Similarly, if you get a damage ping on your unit, or a lot of your units, then you're not going to be able to ready it up with Grand Inquisitor's ability. So that is also a tricky deck or effect to try and deal with. So the match losses that I had at the Store Showdown were all against Blue Hero. So one of them was against Double Blue Obi-Wan, and the other, which I lost twice to because we managed to get to the final 4, excuse me, was Anakin Blue. So I think against Hard Control, this deck would be in a pretty good spot, because Hard Control tends to only be able to deal with 1 unit at one time each phase, with Takedown, Power of Dark Side, etc. And with Grand Inquisitor, you can deploy something and ready it up in the same phase, so you're still managing to get damage in. Against Bosk, it might be, again, a bit tricky because of the damage pings that he can put out when there's bounties on the field. But I think with Control and Unnatural Life, again in particular, that would make it very difficult for them to manage. and especially when you think about it, clan challenges, because of its stat line, it can't be killed with takedown, it can't be killed with open fire, can't be killed with forced choke. It can only be killed with vanquish and rivals fall without first doing anything else to it. So they might use 5 or 6 resources to take it out, so they can't do anything further that phase. You then use unnatural life to bring it back. You're going to hit in for 18, 21 damage if they have no sentinel on the field. So yeah, that's another massive potential. Perilous position, I knew that would also be a big downside for this deck because of our space units with low health, and again, if we're readying up with Grand Inquisitor's ability, Perilous Position can come in and just finish a lot of our units off. And because our units have low power, the -2 makes them useless in a lot of instances. And then Vigilance as well didn't particularly occur to me beforehand, but double aspect decks can be a bit of a blind spot of mine. But because of the defeat a unit with 3 or less remaining HP, even our units that have more than 3 HP, because of, again, Grand Inquisitor's ability, they will end up having less than 3, so they can be defeated. And then, of course, they will generally go for 5 healing. So, yeah, those are, at the moment anyway, the major weaknesses that I kind of knew about and then also discovered as I went along. However, I don't really know how, but I did manage to beat a Cad Bane deck and a Django Tarkin Town deck. They were both Tarkin Town, but they were brain intensive, to say the least. Let's put it that way. Other options. So this is the event that I was talking about or alluding to that would have been an absolute godsend. Shoot first. So only costs 1, so it's going to be pretty playable considering we have a lot of 3 resource units to put out. But because most of our space units are 3 power, they are just understated to not be able to take out Concord or Interceptors. Shoot first gives it +1, so you'll be able to take it out and take no damage back. So yeah, this would have potentially, I may still have lost against the Anakin, but it would have made it a lot more scary for them. So yeah, I think shoot first would be an automatic include in a future version of this deck, possibly instead of unnatural life. And as a bonus, it is a trick, so you can search for it with Jabba, so that will up the chances of getting a extra card from his ability. And then if Jabba is still alive and he's a beefy boy, he's got 8 health, it's quite likely, and in and of himself he's not really a threat, then shoot first only costs 1, so you get a 1 discount, it costs nothing. So yeah, I think shoot first was definitely an oversight on my part. Asteroid Sanctuary. So I did have this in the sideboard. It was mainly as it was a bit of a late edition again as well, but you can exhaust any enemy unit. So if you've got a beefed up enemy unit that is going to be able to outrace you, it just gives you a bit more time. But because we've got a lot of space units that are 3 resources, then you can give a shield token to them. And if you've got a shield token on one of your space units, you can then use Inquisitor's ability to ditch it and ready that unit up an extra time. So that is the thinking behind that. Breaking in, because I knew beforehand that Sentinels could be a bit of a problem. This was also in my sideboard. So you can bypass Sentinel with 1 attack, which could be quite crucial with this deck. Force choke, so this is where if I needed to get rid of certain things, like Sundari Peacekeeper, for example, would be an excellent one to ditch because of its healing capability. We only have, what's it called? Yeah, our leader is the only force unit in the deck, so you're not likely to get the 1 resource discount, but it's still pretty darn cheap anyway. Keep fighting. This might be more reliable than unnatural life because you don't have to have the conditionality of your unit dying, and it only costs 2 to do as well. But again, with nearly every unit in this deck, you can ready it up again and hit in for however much plus raid. Again, clan challenges is the best target for that. Open fire, so this itself would have been able to take out things like Concord Dawn interceptors or just finish off other units as a bit of removal. I would first be inclined to use shoot first, and maybe open fire would replace daring raid potentially. Dwarf Spider Droid was just as an option if I needed to go a bit more heavy on the ground, because yes, it's not very great generally, I would say, but with Grand Inquisitor, it's basically like another Deathwatch Loyalist, because you ready it up, it hits for 5, doesn't have overwhelm, so to say, and it costs 1 more. So it is just a worse version, but it's another ground unit to pad that out if your opponent is perhaps going space heavy and you can't deal with that. And it's Separatist as well, which will help to activate some of our other card abilities. And then the other one that I would consider at the moment anyway is Karrde. Do sometimes get to 7 resources with this deck, and this can just come in and capture some Sentinels or other problematic units on the field. Of course, you can't ready it up, but the main reason, as I say, would just be to clear out. Perhaps they've got Restore, Sentinel, all that sort of thing, and then you can attack him with your other little units. Or, to be honest, by the time you get Cad Bane out, you would hope to only be like 7 damage away from killing them anyway, so in the next phase, attack with Cad Bane and win the game potentially. So onto the set for scouting, and this is where we come to where like Lurking TIE Phantom would be an automatic include. So there is Independent Smuggler in the next set, which is a pilot. You absolutely do not deploy it as a unit, but it only costs 1 to pilot it. It gives +1 power, +1 health, and raid 1. So you do triple dark raid on 4 resources. You get out your Lurking TIE. You then dump an Independent Smuggler on it. It has 3 power, raid 3. It has 3 health, crucially. You hit in for 6. You then ready it up. It has 1 health remaining. You hit in for another 6. You can do 12 damage. So yeah, Independent Smuggler and Lurking TIE Phantom, I would definitely find a place in this deck once set 4 arrives. Now, yes, of course, because how Triple Dark Raid works, the TIE Phantom will return to your hand, so you will lose the Independent Smuggler. But for being able to hit in for 12 versus 4, I think that is worth it. So yeah, it would make this deck, I think. I mean, this deck's already pretty good in my humble opinion, but I think this would make a massive improvement. So, in terms of the rest of set 4, now some of these I'm not entirely convinced on, but we shall see. So, TIE Bomber, on attack, 3 indirect damage, so it's not necessarily going to go on their base, but it's got a 4 health pool, so again, and it's got 0 attack, so you can ready up with Grand Inquisitor on the first phase if you so desire. Now, the Rampart is a 2 cost, but with the slightly odd debilitating ability of this unit doesn't ready during the regroup phase unless its power is 4 or more. So this would be to pad out our turn 1 plays. Grand Inquisitor can ready it with his ability, so you can hit in for 3, which is pretty good for a turn 1 attack, but you're not going to be able to do anything with it after that. So unless there's something else that comes along, at the moment, this is low down on an include. TIE Bomber would be a better include than this, basically. Stay on target, we've got a lot of vehicles, so you can attack with a vehicle unit and it gets +2 and gains when this unit deals damage to a base, draw a card. So as card draw, if we're using the likes of sneak attack, or hand size I should say, if we use sneak attack, it depletes it quite a lot, so being able to draw an extra card could be pretty crucial. So I definitely see a place for this in there. You do have to attack the base though, so you could get roadblocked there. Zygerian Starhopper, this was what is going to ditch or push out the Hotshot V-Wing for 1. It might also replace the Cartel Spacer because you'll be getting the when defeated ability more reliably than the Cartel Spacer exhausting ability. So it's 2-3, so the same stats as Cartel Spacer. So you can ready it up again, but also when defeated, you'll get 2 indirect damage to your opponent. So might go onto their base, might go onto their units. Wherever it goes, you're happy. So onto Death Space Skirmisher. So if you're against a more space heavy deck, then when played, if you control another space unit, which you're pretty likely to, you can exhaust a unit. So it doesn't have to be a space unit, it could be a ground unit, so you can go across arenas, which is very nice. And again, crucially, 3 power, 3 health, you can ready it up and attack. Droid missile platform. So whilst this has 4 power, you can hit this off of Triple Dark Raid, or you can sneak attack it in because it has a when defeated. So deal 3 indirect damage to a player. Now, in the unlikely event they have no units out at that point, you're doing 7 damage to their base. So I do see a spot for this potentially, but you can't ready it up with Grand Inquisitor, as, I mean, even if it had 3 power, it would still die. So, yeah. I mean, you could do an interesting thing. I think it depends how the ability is worded, actually. No, you probably can't then, because it says to a friendly unit with 3 or less power. So you wouldn't be able to just use the ability on the droid platform to get an extra 3 damage out, which might finish them off. Which would have been interesting. Mist Hunter, it's just another option for the Triple Dark Raid 3 resource cost. We would be looking to have some bounty hunters and probably change things around a bit if we were going to do that, so that we would be able to get the drawing card ability. Koigren, however you say that turn, ready a fighter or transport unit with 6 or less power, so every fighter that we've got in the deck is 3 or less power. And I mean, if you've got your Lurking Tie out with an Independent Smuggler on, you can ready it again. So it's another 6 power into base that you could be doing. So yeah. Other than that, I probably don't see. I think 3 resources for another 3 power is probably not good enough in this deck. So it would be completely on the Lurking Tie Phantom and Independent Smuggler. So yeah, it might be a one-off basically, because it would be situational and not massively reliable. The final few cards at the moment that have been revealed that I think could be good. So Hunting Aggressor, if we are able to go a more indirect damage route, then we'll get the benefit of that. But it's another Triple Dark Raid target. It has 3 power, but it has 6 health, which is very good because you can ready it up if your opponent does nothing about it twice with Grand Inquisitor before it only has 2 health, and then it would die. So you could get a bit more mileage out of that. IG 2000, so again in a indirect damage deck, if we've got some pings going around, then this can come in and finish some units off potentially, so you get immediate value in that sense. Has Overwhelm, which I don't think is going to be particularly relevant most of the time, but again, it's another Triple Dark Raid target. It only has 3 power, so you can ready it up with Grand Inquisitor, all the good stuff that we're looking for. The Shuttle ST-149, which is Krennic's little transport. Again, it's just another Triple Dark Raid target. It is shielded, and you may take control of a token upgrade on a unit and attach it to a different eligible unit. So this would have interesting application because you could play it in if your 7th Fleet Defender or Punishing One is damaged or has no shield. You could move it around, ready this up, 2 damage to it, attack in, potentially 6 in 1 phase. It's just another target with all the things that I've been talking about previously to do 6 damage in 1 phase or 3 damage as soon as it's deployed. You can also steal a shield from your opponent. Stealing experience would still probably be worth it as well, but you would not be able to ready up with Grand Inquisitor's ability. I know I'm repeating myself over and over and over again, but that is what he is all about. So, yeah, that is the deck. I think I've probably gone into more detail than I normally would. But as I say, I think Shoot First would definitely replace Unnatural Life at a minimum. And then when set 4 comes around, there is going to be some tinkering, or definitely room for some tinkering, to make the early game even better. So let me know what you think. I would say overall that my blue version that I did with, I mean, when set 4 arrives, there'll probably be more space options for that. I think my blue version is probably going to be more reliably good against a wider variety of decks, but this yellow version has much more explosive potential because of sneak attack and triple dark raid, and to a degree unnatural life, even though I wasn't really able to pull it off. But yeah, let me know how your showdowns went and what you used, and I'll see you in the next video, which may or may not be the Mace Windu Quinlan Twin Suns deck. Like and subscribe to not miss out all that good stuff, which I don't think I end up mentioning most of the time. But yeah, have a good one and see you next time.